Right. So we'll call things to order here. We have a couple sets of minutes to review. Um, the first one is August 19th, 2025. I think we brought this for review at the last meeting, but we only had Holly in attendance of the folks who had been on the committee. Um, and I think Eric, I think you were the other person who was in attendance at that meeting. So I don't know if you both got a chance to look at those, but we could approve those tonight if they looked okay. And I'll just scroll down.
I didn't notice anything on first glance on the August meeting, at least. That was an issue.
Yep, same here. I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes as presented.
I'll second.
And we've got to do it as a roll call vote. So I'll just read everyone's names. Holly Lankowski,
Yes.
Eric Farrell,
Yes.
James Cambius.
Abstain.
Great. Okay. So that's good. And then we also had meeting minutes for last month's meeting on the 17th. Looks like Eric, you weren't there for that one, but Jim, Raloon, and Holly were. So anyone want to make a motion on that one?
I will make a motion to approve the November 17th, 2025 minutes as presented.
Second.
Anyone notice any issues with these?
No.
Okay, Holly Lankowski,
Yes.
Eric Farrell,
Abstain.
James Cambius.
Aye.
Great. Okay. So moving right along, we've got a few guests tonight. First up, we've got Josh Sparks from our EMS. So he's going to talk about the proposed personnel manual updates for SCEMS regarding bereavement, leave, hours and rates of pay. So Josh, I don't know if you want me to just share those proposed personnel manual amendments and you can speak to them, or if you've got anything on your screen you want to share, but happy to share on my end.
Yeah, that's great, Christopher. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me this evening. Excuse me. The first thing is the bereavement leave topic. And I believe it was Tim Drumgoole who had initially proposed some modification to this. You'll excuse me, I have a frog in my throat. I've been sick for about a year now, it feels like. One of the problems that our folks run into with bereavement leave specifically is that the personnel manual as it exists makes it clear that a work day is 8 hours Monday through Friday. And that's just not what our people do. The policy is very fair in the way that it offers up to 3 days off for immediate family bereavement. But what that does for us is leave us in a position where they're really not getting 3 days off to attend services if needed, especially if travel is involved. So, for example, we could have somebody who has a 24-hour shift and a 16-hour shift, and that 24 hours eats up the entirety of their bereavement leave. They get 1 day off, and 2 days later, they're expected to be back at work. So it works if there's no traffic or there's no transportation involved, if things are really local. But the other part of this is maybe when we have death in our immediate family, I think coming back and leading resuscitations of other people experiencing that leaves folks in a very challenging emotional position. And I want them to be working at their absolute best. And so just a little bit more time accomplishes all of these concerns. The policy that I've put forward under number 4, bereavement leave, in front of you, I attempt to address this by giving them up to 4 regularly assigned shifts, not to exceed 1 calendar week for immediate family. With the same caveat that it's not charged against sick or vacation leave of the employee. And this is up to, not necessarily 1 week, right? So I have some folks who their shift is 10-hour-long shifts 4 days a week. I have some folks who work a 24-hour shift and a 16-hour shift. I have other folks who work 2 8-hour shifts and 1 24-hour shift. And there's just a variety of shift compositions. And so in an effort to be equitable to all of them, I think what we can do is something like this, where it's maybe a little ambiguous and discretionary. However, people get the time off that they need. Are there any thoughts on this that I can address?
I did have a question. You used the term not to exceed 1 calendar week. And I would almost presume that you could have someone's need crossing over 2 calendar weeks.
Yeah, so maybe we could rephrase
I'm wondering
that.
if I think your intention is to allow up to the 40 hours.
Yeah, so that's a great point. We could absolutely edit that to read not to exceed 40 hours. That makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
That way, if it did go, during 1 pay week into another, it would allow the same concept for people
Absolutely, that's
to
great.
have that time.
Especially since their shifts can continue over the weekend after all.
Correct.
Jim, could you say that again? I can't hear you.
Sorry, I was saying that, SCEM's shifts continue throughout the weekend, unlike, 5-day-a-week town employees.
Correct.
Any other thoughts? I'll move on. The second part of this is hours. And in the personnel manual, this is section 10.
Could we back up? Because
Certainly.
there was more than that first paragraph.
Mhm.
Are there other?
Yes, for
changes?
sure. So leave of up for non-immediate family members, we give them 1 additional shift. So it's not really defined by hours, it's defined by shifts. Because a shift could be 24 hours in a day. A shift could also be 8 hours in a day. And it really depends on when it all happens. So the idea is we've just kind of cut this in half, right? For the immediate family, we offer up to 4 or 40 hours. And then for the non-immediate family members, we drop it down to 2 shifts. Any thoughts on that?
But 2 shifts could be 40 hours.
It could be.
I think it reads the same to me.
Mhm.
Um,
It could situationally.
when we are giving our other employees 1 day,
Mhm.
that seems like that's a big,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's not meant to single us out or to be unfair to any other employees, for sure. It goes back to the same exact argument. that if somebody does work that 24-hour shift and their close cousin dies and they're going to go to services and really aren't in the appropriate emotional state to be working on an ambulance doing resuscitation, it's not unreasonable to say that the day after tomorrow, they get that off too. So I'm all about if there's any insight into a way that we could word this better, for sure. This was fairly thrown together to get it into all of you in time. So absolutely open to revision. But the intent, again, is to do right for the employees. We could alter that just to say not to exceed 24 hours because that at least covers one total shift off.
But that could be 3 days for someone who works 8 hours.
Well, I mean, that doesn't exist. And it also, I don't like that either because it means that I have some people who work 10-hour shifts and they would get more than 2 shifts off, but not quite 3 shifts off.
I mean, is there some way that we could word it based on what people's schedule is? If the schedule is the following, then it will be this, and if their schedule is the following, it'll be this.
Yeah, so parse it out into a matrix and present it. If you work this schedule, then this is what you get. Is that what you're recommending?
I would think that would maybe be clearer and fairer with other town employees to show you're trying to show some ability to react to the differences within your department. But, you know, the first paragraph is a no-brainer. You know, it's trying to give people their work week off, a 40-hour block of time to deal with immediate family. But this next one to me is a little bit, I almost think a matrix might work better.
We can look at that. The one concern, and I'm absolutely open to that, it's a great suggestion. The one concern that I do have about that is the matrix itself is subject to change periodically, and we'll address that when we talk about hours. And I mean, it just becomes a little onerous if we need to update the personnel manual annually or more often than annually if there's a change to the schedule matrix itself. And that this does happen. I think it's changed 3 times in the last 2 years. So it's a great idea, but it does open us up to some uncertainty. I think we can look at this and I can submit a draft through Christopher and get his input, and we can revisit this at the next personnel board meeting. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Great.
And you could maybe, Joshua, you could maybe even anticipate the flexibility of shifts, you know, 8-hour blocks, 10-hour blocks, 6, you know, in a matrix.
Mhm.
That way, even though you wouldn't have necessarily someone fitting in it right now, you could address it by how you put them in it.
Yeah, we could absolutely kind of throw chicken soup at it, and you know, maybe those shifts don't exist. And we're creating I mean, I don't want to create policy for something that doesn't reflect what we do. But we can look at that. I also added a section on here about leave not to exceed one regularly scheduled shift at my discretion based on the operational needs of the department, may be allowed to attend the funerary services of a current or former department or employee. And this is something that is not addressed in the current personnel manual, as I understand it. The people that work in this job form very tight bonds with one another. They spend time dining together, they sleep in the same building, they live a very large part of their lives together. They share very intimate moments involving other people's grief, and they form very tight bonds. If that situation were to occur, it makes sense to me that people are going to want to go pay their respects. And going back to, I guess there's no nice way to put this, but if my paramedic partner dies, me going to the funeral and then going right back to work on the ambulance probably isn't a very good idea. So I like the idea of giving them that shift off. It would be a rare occurrence. It wouldn't broadly impact the department. What it would likely mean was most people on the department are going to want to go to that service. But it just means that I'm looking to fill probably 2 shifts with per diems or with myself into per diem, or, you know, again, at my discretion based on our needs. But I think it's an important thing to consider. Just because of the risk evident in the work that these folks do. Any other thoughts about that? No? Okay. So as far as bereavement leave is concerned, I will do just that. I will revise this. I will work with Christopher, and I'll present something for the next personnel board meeting. And I appreciate your thoughts and comment. For hours, this is intentionally fairly ambiguous because, as I stated before, the shift matrix and the hourly composition of a shift is subject to change based off of our needs for deployment. So what we do are, I look at very regular patterns of response data. And when are we needed and when are we less likely to be busy? And how do we best staff to accommodate that? And how do we overlap our shifts so that we can handle staffing emergencies as they come up? And these come up regularly. Little things like sick calls or bereavement could be one, or there's all kinds of things that pop up where, oh no, I don't have coverage and I'm sent scrambling. So sometimes it's nice to have some overlapping redundancy as long as it meets our response needs. So again, this is fairly ambiguous, and what I've left it as is the normal workday is based off of our shift bid practice and varies among our employees. A normal work week is defined as being 40 hours. So the way that the shift bid process works is the goal really is to do this annually, where a shift bid is presented to everybody via a schedule matrix, and based on their department seniority, they select their first, second, and third choices for shifts. Was the way we did it last time, and everybody got their at least second choice. And it works out really nicely. So people have some agency over when they work, and that's been fantastic. But it also gives me the flexibility to change the composition of our matrix to meet department needs. So the 8 hour, the work week is 8 hours a day, and it is Monday through Friday, obviously doesn't benefit our department. That's not what we do. So again, the idea here is just to say, hey, we have our practice for awarding shifts. It's 40 hours. Thoughts on this?
I have one question. Are the 40 hours a would that always be the same 40 hours on a given day of the week, or does it shift around the weekly calendar? If you see what I mean.
Yeah, great question. The current schedule matrix, it is fixed. Now, that doesn't mean that people don't alter it on regular occasions, right? So people will swap their shifts with other employees to meet their life needs, right? Appointments, childcare, all of these things as they come up. But rotations, just 2 cycles ago, that shift was a rotation where it was not the same fixed days within a week. In that schedule, they had a 10-day period off in between the rotation. That clearly didn't meet our needs, but they sure enjoyed that 10 days off. The point is, they can really vary. So it's not unimaginable that the future may bring a rotation-based schedule. But to answer your question, currently they're fixed days per week.
So looking at this, you're proposing a change in the verbiage in the personnel manual? Because are all employees working 40 hours a week?
Our full-time employees are 40 hours a week. The per diem employees, of course, don't have regularly assigned schedules. They work on a per diem basis, right? They're called part-time in the town of Deerfield nomenclature, but they're not regular employees. So I am suggesting a change to the verbiage specific to South County EMS employees, because under the existing personnel manual, a workday is 8 hours Monday through Friday.
Okay.
And there's no way that we can meet that obligation, right? So we're forced into a scenario where we don't meet that requirement. And it also just doesn't address the needs of our employees.
Okay, so you're asking for that category of the manual to have an addendum to have a separate paragraph about South County.
We could look at it that way. We could look at it as a whole South County section as an addendum. We could do this in whatever format seems reasonable. I don't really have any preferences for that. But yeah, I think it's important to include some language about South County employees because they do work weekends, they do work overnights and evenings, and they do work 24-hour shifts, sometimes longer. So it's important to address that. And I feel the best way to do it, again, is to be a bit ambiguous about it because of just the nature of the assignments.
Yeah. Chris, I'm curious with other communities, do they cull out this more unusual work schedule into its own section, or do they just qualify it within each category of the manual?
Yeah, it's a good question. I haven't seen, I'm trying to think of an example of a manual that has something as different as SCEMS is from the rest of, our office employees, our bylaw employees. Nothing's coming to mind. I think, maybe what a next step would be is, Josh, you and I talk about, some of the updates we've discussed with these items tonight. And then we could just kind of put them in track changes in a version of the personnel manual and bring that before the body, and we could see, kind of what makes the most sense, whether it's putting, these EMS specific items within those categories of hours and bereavement, or if it is, just a totally different section of the manual for SCEMS. So we can take a look at that.
Yeah, that makes some good sense. And I think, Holly, to answer that question, I think a lot of the departments who work shifts like this fall under collective bargaining agreements. South County EMS is a bit unusual in that they don't have that. So, in a sense, a lot of the questions that we're asking and the topics we're discussing are typical items covered in a bargaining agreement.
Okay.
So in lack of that document, we're looking to address some of those things, and this is where we're starting, right?
Yeah. I only think that because we have a personnel manual, we're either going to have to flag out each section to say, see other, because otherwise, if we're not putting it in the same categories and putting it elsewhere, we're going to need at least a pointer to say that's covered elsewhere. Because the assumption would be it pertains to everybody, unless we flag it out.
Yeah, that's a good approach. I think another thing you could do is you could just maybe include some preamble that South County EMS employees are covered under these provisions, and it just takes care of it, one and done, right? And then we flip to that section for South County stuff, right? We've kind of already done that with our pay scale.
Yeah, I think though that, that the usual person going to look at bereavement, what's bereavement, they flip to bereavement. And if there isn't some flag to look for one subset elsewhere, they may not pay attention to look for the subset. So anyway, I think we need to be just careful that we make sure we have it properly identified in the whole manual.
All right. The last thing I have tonight is rates of pay. The last 3 pages of your meeting packet are proposed South County EMS compensation schedules. These are for 1, 2, and 3% COLAs. And on top of that, people will be getting a step raise just because of their length of employment. Christopher was very thoughtful in putting this together for me. Thank you kindly, Christopher. I appreciate it. My take on this is, obviously, I would like to compensate as high an amount as possible. Life is very expensive. The changes in the contributions to healthcare premiums have been profound this year. And unfortunately, we've been very good at seeing increases at South County EMS for the last couple of years, but the changes in the healthcare premiums alone have taken it to the point where people are taking home less now than they were 2 years ago. And so it's obvious that I want to try and improve their quality of living as much as I can, but at the same time, those costs have gone up for our department as well. And we have to shoulder quite a bit of that. So my intention with this is to follow the advice of the town and what the town comes up with for its standard employee classification compensation schedule as their COLA increase. I was going to try and follow suit with that. Unfortunately, we're just starting to gear up to look at the fiscal year 27 budget, and I don't have a lot of the numbers about what everything else is going to cost. So this is something I would like to defer any decision on until we have more input about, we have more economic data from this fiscal year and what we're looking to spend for next year, along with the recommendation from the town.
Yeah, I'll just remind everyone, we normally talk about a percentage for COLA in December. This body makes a recommendation and the select board will usually adopt that recommendation just for budget development purposes. Through the course of developing the budget through January, February, March, and April, they may adjust that COLA. They may adjust it up or down depending on what we find out the budget of the schools is, or what other budget items come across our desks that would prompt us to make changes to that number. So at this point, this is kind of a number that we're just talking about for the purposes of budget development, and it could change, but this at least gives everyone kind of a starting point.
So, yeah, thank you, Christopher. So I'll leave this with you to enjoy, and just another reminder about our classification, about our compensation schedule specific to South County EMS. We currently have no administrative assistant. We have no EMS lieutenants or captains, nor do we have a deputy chief of EMS position filled. So we have EMT basics and we have paramedics. There's also no advanced EMT. So there's a lot of positions and a lot of numbers on these forms that I want to keep in existence because of future planning. However, most of these positions don't exist in reality.
They're notional
What's that, James?
employees.
Yes. So are there any other concerns or questions or topics which I can address for the board this evening?
I don't know that.
Josh, I guess I would just ask, I believe you have a meeting with the BOO this week potentially. Are you going to be bringing this up with them as well?
Yeah, for sure. So the BOO is meeting tomorrow at 6 p.m. And this will definitely be part of the discussion, specifically pay.
Okay. Okay, well, in terms of the other items for the manual, we'll get together and we'll talk through some updates based on the comments we heard tonight. And we've got another regularly scheduled meeting for this body, I believe, February 10th. So if we don't have a January meeting pop up, we can talk about this some more in February and try to get it to a place where it's ready for adoption for FY27.
What was the date on that February meeting?
I believe it's February 10th.
Okay. That's fantastic. All right. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate your time. Have a great evening.
Great. Thanks, John. Okay. So we have a few other items, but I know we've got guests, so I just wanted to leap to our other job descriptions that we've got to review. So we've got Chief Pachurk in the audience, so to speak. So Chief, I don't know if you want to speak to the police department assistant position that you put an updated description together for. I'm going to stop sharing here and just share that, but you can speak to some of the changes we made. I'll pull that up.
Yeah, I think most of the stuff we addressed at the last meeting, I just kind of took what we addressed at the last meeting and incorporated it into the job description as the personnel board had requested, just to keep everything in unison. So happy to field any questions relative to it, but I tried to incorporate as much as I could in there without being over the top, because I didn't want that either.
I have one question.
Sure.
So the description, the physical, motor, and visual skills, one of them includes, where is it? That may need to work. Oh, here we go. Under recommended minimum qualifications, they may need to be able to operate a grader or a backhoe.
That's just taken right out of the actual language from the grading options. So certain things like snowplow, grader, backhoe can be removed, grease can be removed, but pepper spray and other urine or fecal matter in a jail cell would not want to be removed, but those aren't in there. So
Right.
yeah, it's kind of a catch-22 where I'm trying to cite the exact verbiage out of the 21 study.
Okay. I mean, as it is, it sounds like, almost an officer position.
It kind of quasi is for anybody that's worked internally in the police department. They know that any good administrator in the police department is almost a part-time police officer sitting there.
I mean, I especially, notice, have like operating vehicles at high speeds and firing a weapon.
Did we get this sent to us?
Yeah, and Holly, I apologize. This came just before the meeting.
That was my fault, Holly. I got to it late because I was out last week. So I got it to Christopher really late in the day.
Okay. So, I see your point, John, with, how you were trying to look for the scoring to put the right skill in. But I think what you need to do is put the skill that will be applicable to the job and not any other catch-all stuff. So you need to dial back to the couple points Jim has made to strip out the other stuff. And
Sure.
because if that one category says A, B, and C, we'll just put the B if it's applicable for that category.
Sure.
Because again, if the person's not gonna drive a cruiser fast or operate heavy equipment, then you want to strip that out of there. I think just going back over it and reading it, just think about the things the person will do and just get rid of the redundant extra stuff.
Yeah, that's easy enough.
You got the guts there. You can just, pluck out the extra stuff.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, that's very simplistic. And I probably should have in advance. That's my fault. Like I said, I was just trying to keep the template intact, but I probably should not have.
So other than those physical and motor skills issues, did anyone notice any issues with the job description?
I'm going to have to look it over.
Okay. That's fine. So I guess just in the interest of making sure, John can move forward with developing his budget for FY27, if we were to address, those issues with the physical and motor skills, and we feel like we are able to get this essential functions to the right place, do we think we're going to be okay with approving this at our next meeting in all likelihood? Or do people have kind of deeper trepidations about the position than that?
Remind me, the position exists as it is right now, correct?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Eric. I think maybe you weren't at the last meeting. So basically, yeah, Cassie Jerome currently fills the administrative assistant role for the police department. John came to us just pointing out that the role has really evolved, and particularly because it's an administrative assistant position within the context of a police department, where you have folks who are coming in and being put in a jail cell, or you have a myriad number of other issues that John pointed out. It really does kind of need to be at a higher grade than it currently is. So he put together an updated job description, kind of reflecting those changes that have occurred with the position. He looked at our grading manual and updated the position accordingly, and so that's kind of where we're at. So it's a big jump in terms of grades for the position that's being proposed. But again, I harken back to what John said about how the role has evolved in the time that it's existed, and just the nature of working in a police department rather than say an administrative office over here on the town hall side.
Sure. And just a quick, and I didn't get to look at the November meeting super closely. What's the grade jump?
Yeah. So sorry, go ahead, John.
From a C to an E.
Okay, gotcha.
You said C2
An E.
E? Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That's what I thought I heard. Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty much keeping it the same as we had it prior to the 21 study. I think we noted at the last meeting that we had reclassified this position back in 2013 with additional duties and responsibilities. However, those duties and responsibilities, for some reason, and it could have been my fault, it could have been the backside of COVID, but they were not carried forward through the new 21 study. This position was regraded in 2013. It was regraded right up to 385 points. And this pretty much keeps it intact with where it was prior to the 21 study.
Gotcha. Okay.
It actually went backwards in the 21 study. That was all noted in my presentation at the last meeting.
Yeah.
And it's also on the bottom of one of the letters that I submitted earlier.
We could always try to just meet, on this topic if, we needed to. If we see a clean copy of this, maybe we could just do a short meeting.
Yeah, I'm sure Christopher and I can clean it up literally in 5 or 10 minutes.
If you'd like a professional writer and editor's help, I'll volunteer.
I love it.
Great. So yeah, so maybe that's what we'll do. We'll look at some dates in early January when we can just get together on maybe just this item.
Yeah, and if there's just a couple of, quick items, maybe we could just do a, half-hour meeting, just knock a couple things down and not do other things.
Yep, makes sense.
And if you
Okay.
see anything else on the side, Holly, just give me a shout.
Okay.
Like, yeah. If something else sticks out and I go, oh, yeah, I missed that. I'm sorry.
So, you'll send the clean copy through Chris, and then Chris, you'll get us out the clean copy?
Yes.
Yep, that's
Okay. Good. Thank you.
all right. Anything else for John? Great.
Great. Happy holidays. See everybody soon.
Okay. Take care.
Thanks.
John.
All right, and then the last one of our guests, I know we've got Pete Law from the Conservation Commission here to talk about the conservation agent position. Let me just pull that up so we can all take a look. And again, this is one of those ones that I sent a little bit late in the day, so apologies, but we'll take a look really quick. And everyone, I think, has already had an opportunity to review this previously. And now we're kind of at the point where we are looking at whether or not the position should be funded through the operating budget And so that's kind of just prompted the need to look again at the job description and then talk about, what the grade for this position should be. So I sent everyone this updated job description. It really just reflects, it's pretty much verbatim what we had already looked at when we posted the position for the piloted role back over the summer or spring. And then I just removed some of the language around that only pertained to the piloted element of the role. So there was something in there about, this is a piloted position and here's, what it's going to pay. But we can remove that. And then I think the main thing to discuss tonight is just, if there are any questions after taking a look at this. And also, I think I was looking at a grade D based on what the position was posted for. And so we'll take a look at the class comp later tonight. So we can look at, what that would actually entail. But Pete, you have anything else you want to add about the conservation agent position for now?
No, Chris, I think we went through it the last meeting, and I have not had a chance to review this updated description, but I trust it's right on par. So thank you.
It was considerably less physically demanding than the administrative assistant.
Yeah, no speeding cars in this one, but.
I wasn't trying to be snarky because I was actually wondering if perhaps some of the text had gotten accidentally switched between them. That's why I was asking about that.
There is a lot of field work, but no speeding cars and no heavy equipment.
All right, any other questions for Pete on this one? So if not, I just entertain a motion just to approve the job description for the conservation agent as presented.
I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Great. And we'll do a roll call vote if there's no further discussion at this point. Holly Lankowski,
Yes.
James Cambias,
James Cambias, aye.
Eric Farrell.
Yes.
Okay, so that passes. So you approve the job description, and then we'll talk about the class comp in just a moment. But at least, Pete, moving forward as we talk to the finance committee and select board, we can use this document
Okay.
to have an understanding of what the position entails.
All right. Thanks, Chris. And I'll probably just jump off now then.
Great. Thanks, Pete.
Thanks, Pete.
All right. Thank you guys much. Take care.
Okay, so I believe, let me share my screen again. So I believe the only other job description was principal assessor. Just in the interest of time, I'm gonna skip over that for the moment and just go to the class comp and the cost of living adjustments. And we can, if we have some time at the end, we can talk about the principal assessor position a little bit more. So everyone in your meeting packets, you have a series of spreadsheets, which I'll pull up here. Basically, as well as a little memo about the class comp, as well as the suggested COLA. So I'll just summarize that really quickly. Most years we kind of recommend a cost of living adjustment based on consumer price index, and then, as well as market factors. So what we're seeing other towns in the area grant for COLAs in a given fiscal year. This year is a little bit different for two reasons. One is that we didn't have consumer price index data for the last few months, and I believe we're still not going to have it until at least later this week, because the Bureau of Labor Statistics, along with the federal government, was shut down for a bit. We believe it'll be roughly in the 3% range. So still a lot of inflation for sure over the last year. And then the other factor is just, this year we are facing some really serious health insurance increases. We had essentially a 20% increase effective July 1. That was followed up almost immediately with another 20% increase effective October 1. And we are at the very least budgeting for another 20% before July 1 of this year. And that has to do with all sorts of challenges that the health insurance market is facing, and then in particular with our Hampshire County Group Insurance Trust, which is experiencing, the strains that a lot of these small group insurance trusts are facing, from GLP-1 weight loss drugs and the kind of wave of post-COVID elective and non-elective medical procedures, as well as a bunch of other factors. So essentially, it's a perfect storm for health insurance, and we're paying the bill. So that really is impacting everyone's abilities to grant COLAs. And so I took a look at, a few different options in terms of COLA. And in your packet, you've got a 1%, which has that kind of light blue color on it. Yeah, 2%, and then also a 3 at the back there. And then just in terms of, the class comp itself and what positions are on it, I just wanted to highlight a couple things. I did add that conservation agent in there just for the purposes of budget development and discussion. Obviously, that's something that the select board and the finance committee still need to sign off on, but now at least we have a job description, and that can be brought forward to those bodies for their review. As mentioned, it's on a grade D there. Beyond that, there's also, what the position that the chief was talking about, the assistant to the police department at a grade E. And I think the only other change in terms of an additional position is the principal assessor at a grade G. And I should say it's an additional position on the class comp, but it's really effectively a position. It's replacing another position, because the idea was to have that principal assessor rather than the administrative assistant to the assessors. So it's an addition on the class comp, but not in real life, so to speak. So, and then in terms of just other minor tweaks, I've added the town accountant back on here because our current town accountant, Holly Drake, does not have a contract with the town. She's a by-law employee, so she's on the class comp. And then we do have a couple folks who are under contract, but Mass General Law doesn't have there's no specific Mass General Law for towns to contract with them. So those folks are on the class comp, and it's frankly a bit of a gray area how that works. But I did think it was important just to include them on the class comp, just so we don't lose sight of their compensation. Any questions about the class comp or the COLA?
I'm just new, and so I'm just not sure of what our role is here. If you could just elaborate.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the last few years since the Collins Center study, the Personnel Board has basically reviewed a recommendation from the town administrator for a COLA and for the overall class comp. And as I mentioned earlier, the COLA is really just for budget development purposes at this point. So, in this case, I'm recommending just a 1% COLA based on the health insurance factors that I just discussed. But the Personnel Board could grant a different amount, or recommend a different amount, I should say. And the Select Board and Finance Committee could down the line change that as well. So we're really just trying to give our departments a starting place to say, here's your payroll budget, and here's the percentage that it'll go up. Just in terms of COLA, that is, of course, on top of a 2.5% step that employees get so long as they're not stepped out.
So is there a way for you to tell us what that percentage COLA impact is for 1%, 2%, 3%?
Yeah, absolutely. So our town accountant did run those numbers because it doesn't affect employees who are under contract or employees who are under a collective bargaining agreement. There's really only kind of a small slice of town employees who are on this class comp and are affected by that COLA. And so ultimately, a 1% COLA is only about, a $13,000 increase for FY27. That doubles if you go with a 2% COLA, and it triples if you go with a 3% COLA.
So budget-wise, you're saying a 1% impacts the budget other than the step increases by $13,000.
Correct. Yep. So it's really not a huge amount at 1%.
And can you tell me why you are recommending 1 versus 2 versus 3?
Yeah, again, I just go back to the health insurance issues. So I can tell you that just hearing from the schools in particular, not only did we have to face a 40% health insurance increase over the last, really a compounded 20% over 20% increase over the last 6 months, but we haven't even actually seen the full bill for health insurance. And that's because Frontier this year didn't bill the towns, essentially. They dipped into their reserves to cover the increase in health insurance that they're facing. So in FY27, that increase, which is going to be another 20% beyond what they already increased this year in all likelihood, that's going to be built into our assessment from the schools. So we're anticipating several $100,000 worth of additional costs that the town was not anticipating in FY25. So that's really why, why I ended up going with such a low COLA recommendation at this point in the process, at least.
And some of the information that is suggesting some potential shifting on like the GLP drugs after the first of the year to be more favorably priced. I mean, could that shift to be more favorable for the town?
Yeah, so just to back up, so I know at least initially the Hampshire County Group Insurance Trust partially attributed the need for these increases to GLP-1s, which they were just seeing their use really explode. And so they made the decision with the Insurance Advisory Committee to basically no longer cover GLP-1s for weight loss. They would cover it for diabetes, but not weight loss, effective October 1. And so the hope was that we would see a lot less in terms of pharmaceutical claims starting in October. And so far, that just has not really panned out. And at least it has not shown up in the bottom line. And I know I was literally today, talking to some health insurance consultants about it. And frankly, they were quite pessimistic that would really make a significant difference. At least one of the issues is just that if you have a doctor who is working closely with a patient and that patient wants to be on these drugs, they can find a way to make sure they're classified as pre-diabetic or whatever they need to be on those drugs. Mm-hmm. So it seems like, that approach, at least so far, has not borne fruit, and folks seem, again, pessimistic that it will. So the health insurance situation is really, really challenging for all of these towns. And I would just, I would say it's a terrible situation in that employees are feeling it too. The town is facing a major cost increase, and then at the same time, employees are having to pay these increased premiums. So it's really a double whammy with no bright side. So yeah.
Yeah, and the unfortunate thing is if the COLA has to stay lower, then it's a whammy again.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
Now, I will say, the only positive thing is that, I can recommend a 1% COLA. This personnel board could recommend a 1% COLA, and the finance committee and select board down the line during the budget development process could figure out, well, actually, we've got some wiggle room to grant a 2% or a 2.5% or whatever it may be. So this certainly isn't the end of the conversation, but just knowing what the reality is in terms of health insurance, it would be hard to recommend anything more than a 1% at this time, from my
I
perspective.
haven't heard anything indicating that we're going to have a lot of wiggle room.
say that again, Jim.
I said, I haven't heard anything that would indicate we are going to have a lot of wiggle room in the budget.
Mm,
Quite the reverse.
yeah, yeah.
Any other questions on the class comp or the COLA? So I don't know if any members feel comfortable making a motion to recommend a percentage COLA to the select board. Again, just a recommendation. Select board will look to, adopt that potentially just for budget development purposes at this time.
Do I have a loaded question to ask?
Okay.
Can I participate in this, having a family member working for the town?
Well, so in this case, your family member does not work for a position under this particular class comp. Since as we were talking about with Josh earlier, the SCEMS class comp is separate. So
Okay.
at this time, we're
Okay.
just recommending for regular bylaw.
So
employee.
this is the non-SCEMS. I can participate.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I just don't want to be in a situation. Thank you.
All right, just as a basis for discussion, I move that we recommend the 1% cost of living allowance increase.
I will second that.
I mean,
Do you have any further discussion on that motion?
as you've said, we don't have a lot of solid information, and this will provide at least a baseline, and I don't know, it doesn't seem as though, with my finance committee hat on, I'm not comfortable recommending a higher COLA because I know it's always a lot harder to pull back than to increase.
I'll second that. Yeah, it's better to under promise and over deliver. I don't know if that's the apt saying that to go on here, but that's kind of, yeah. I'm supportive of this as well.
If there's additional information available, do we look at this again?
Yeah, we certainly could. I mean, so in January, if we're going to have another meeting anyway, for that police position, we could certainly revisit it. At that point, we should have Bureau of Labor Statistics consumer price index numbers. I don't think they're going to go in the direction we want necessarily. 3 to 4% CPI is kind of what we're looking at in all likelihood. But maybe they'll be different than what we expect. So it is something we could certainly look at again.
I guess my question is, if we gave a recommendation today, but we wanted to change it based on additional information, could we?
We could, yep. Again, this is really for budget development process. So
Right.
it's so that the select board can adopt it, and then I can go to our town departments and say, hey, when developing your payroll budgets, this is the recommended COLA. And so you tack that 1% onto your 2.5% steps.
It's just frustrating.
Agreed. Yeah.
Fortunately, the town revenues aren't increasing quite as rapidly.
No, and I will really say every town is in the same boat right now. You know, it's not just towns that are even in just the Hampshire County Group Insurance Trust. It's across the state, and it's in other states as well. So it's a really unfortunate reality for this this budget year. Yeah. Any other discussion on the motion?
Said my piece.
All right, hear none. Holly Lankowski,
Yes.
James Cambias,
James Cambias, aye.
and Eric Farrell.
Yes.
Okay, so that passes. And then are folks okay with sticking around for just 5 more minutes to talk about the principal assessor position? I know it's already 7:15. I did want to make sure we got to take a look at that at least really quick. Pull that up.
So my question is, because you also gave us information, which I'm not going to participate in, but on the COLA for Skims, is that separate?
Yeah, so a little bit of a gray area in that, you know, I think it was only last year that we switched to having a different class comp for them. I think what the select board wanted to do this year is have the BOO discuss that COLA and see what they're comfortable with, and then they'll take a recommendation from that body.
Okay. Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's an area we might want to tighten up in the future, you know, who's recommending what. But at the end of the day, I'm anticipating Skims will not stray too far from what the town is recommending, again, because they're facing all the same budget pressures that we are. So yeah. So I did send out this principal assessor job description to everyone. I know, again, it went out a little bit late. I will say that the Board of Assessors got to review it back in, I guess it was just last week, I think. Possibly the week prior at their regular meeting. So they were all on board with this. They had a couple of minor tweaks in terms of making sure that whoever the principal assessor is, they don't actually have to know anything about web design, but they just have to help maintain the web page for the Board of Assessors. So we clarified that. Did anyone have a chance to take a look at this and have any questions?
Yeah, I had one, and I'm this is partly just my ignorance about whether this is standard procedure or not. That we're hiring an assessor, a principal assessor, and so one of the requirements is to have a accredited assessor designation. But then there's this clause that if they don't, they have 2 years to get it, or longer if the Board of Assessors wants them to. I mean, 2 years is long. Many people don't work for the town for 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm happy to talk to the Board of Assessors about that particular piece. I know that just when we were talking about planning to post this, there was a desire to have some flexibility because, you know, we may go out with a job description and find that there are a bunch of assistants who are close to having their degree or would really like to, but just aren't quite there yet. And it would be a shame if we had to kind of turn them away because they don't meet that threshold. You know, the reality is there are not a lot of people who do this work. You know, property assessment, municipal property tax assessment in Massachusetts is kind of a shrinking industry, unfortunately. And and we've been lucky to have somebody in-house who can do it, and not just have to contract with a consultant. So, but yeah, I think that was the rationale behind leaving that flexibility in there.
Okay.
But maybe 2 years is generous. I don't know. It's a long time.
Um,
That was my only question.
are we gonna meet just for John's job description in January?
Yep, though, we could add this to that
I-
agenda.
Yeah, I would really like the ability to read this fully. I haven't, got to.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's fine.
So, I mean, if we just left that meeting just to be about these two job descriptions, have clean copies of them, we could, rock right through it.
Makes sense. Yep. Okay. Well, in that case, since I don't think we have any other items tonight, we can go ahead and take a look at our calendars.
Okay.
Just see.
I'm going to be the problem child here because I'm going to be absolutely unavailable before January 16.
Okay. Let me take a look at my calendar. Yeah, and unfortunately, Relu didn't make it tonight, so I'm not sure what her restrictions might be, but let's see. Do folks have availability? Actually, is that holiday?
The 19th is a holiday.
Okay. Let's see.
Do we do the 20th?
Yeah, I could do the 20th. If we do 6 p.m., that works for me.
Eric or Jim?
Looks okay on my end.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was
20th?
just saying that the 20th at 6 p.m. looks okay for me.
All right. I will reluctantly agree. I have a social event I can cancel.
Could we do it earlier if we're just doing these job descriptions? I mean, it should be like a half an hour.
Yeah, I'm perfectly fine with that. I think
we
I
could
think
s-
Berlin works, so we just want to be sensitive to that.
But if we could squeeze in like if you think it's only going to be like a brief meeting, like maybe at 5:45 to 6:15 or 6:30, would that be feasible?
That's okay with me.
Yeah.
I'm being a little self-serving here because that means I would be able to do the other thing that I have scheduled.
No, that's fine. Yeah, no, I'm fine with if we did a 5:30 or 5:45. Why don't I just shoot? I'm going to shoot Relu an email, and
Right.
I can firm up the date. But let's say tentatively January 20th at 5:45 for our next meeting, and we'll just go over the conservation aid, or excuse me, the principal assessor position and the police assistant position.
Okay. And just do those two items and be done.
Exactly.
That's good. I can do that.
Convenient. Thank you.
Great. All right. Any other items from anyone before we adjourn? I'm just
I move that
going
we
back.
adjourn.
I'll second that.
All right. And just as a reminder, we also have a meeting February 10th at 6.
Correct.
All right. Well, thanks everyone. Appreciate you taking the time, and I'll be sending around an email with possible date and time, and or possible time rather, on the 20th.
Wonderful. Happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays.
Christmas to all.
Take care. Bye bye.